the unending cry from the wall. I remember the day I moved into that row house in the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur like it was yesterday. It was late 2019, right when the world was buzzing with rumors of some strange virus from China. But back then, I didn't pay much attention. My name's Arif Rahman, 29 years old, working as a technician fixing electrical systems and security cameras. My job mostly involved bouncing from one office to another, installing surveillance setups, or repairing busted cameras. Life was pretty straightforward. Single, no family ties holding me down, just my beat-up motorcycle and a bunch of tools. I decided to rent this place because the price was dirt cheap, only 800 ringgit a month for a 2-story unit, half what you'd pay for a modern apartment in the city center. It's just temporary, I told myself. Get a steady gig, then move out. The neighborhood was tucked away in a quiet corner of Petaling Jaya, about 20 minutes drive from downtown Kuala Lumpur, if traffic wasn't a nightmare. Built back in the 1980s, these row houses had thick brick walls and low ceilings that made you feel like you were living in an old concrete box, musty and worn. There were around 30 units in total, but at least a third were abandoned or rented out short-term to migrant workers from Indonesia or Bangladesh. During the day, it looked decent enough, overgrown trees shading the rusty fences, neighborhood kids kicking a ball around on the cracked asphalt road, and the occasional motorcycle zipping by. But at night, At night, it was different, eerily quiet. No traffic noise, no blaring music from bars or karaoke spots. Just the creak of the ceiling fan in the living room, stray cats yowling in the dark corridors, and wind whistling through the old window cracks, sounding like distant whispers or worse, like something scratching from inside the walls. I'm not the superstitious type. Grew up in a middle-class family in Johor Bahru, studied engineering in college, believed in science, logic, and things you could prove. Ghosts, just figments of an overactive imagination, or maybe brain glitches from fatigue. So when I moved into Unit 17, I didn't think twice. I loaded up my bike with a few boxes of personal stuff, clothes, laptop, some tech books, and my repair kit with screwdrivers, wires, and spare cameras. The house had 2 bedrooms upstairs, but I only used the main one. The other was for junk like old cartons and broken gadgets. The walls were solid, painted white but yellowed with age. And the air was always hot and humid, sticky even with the fan on full blast. A faint musty smell hung around, mixed with exhaust fumes from the main road a few hundred meters away. That first day settling in was boringly normal. I spent the afternoon unpacking, then set up my own security cameras, professional habit. One at the front door, one in the downstairs living room, and another in the upstairs bedroom, all linked to my phone app for remote viewing, just in case of burglars, I figured. That evening, I hit up the little Mamak stall at the end of the street, a typical Malay roadside eatery with flickering neon lights and the aroma of grilling roti canai. I ordered a plate of nasi lemak and a hot day tarik, sitting there watching the neighborhood. That's when I first met Pax Het. He was about 70, living in the old wooden house at the far end of the row, a traditional Malay kampung-style place with a curved tiled roof and elevated wooden floors. Pax Seller used to be a local shaman, healing with herbs and charms, but now he was retired, sipping black kopio and spinning yarns for anyone who'd listen. Tall and skinny, with sun-darkened skin, deep-set eyes behind thick glasses, and always in a white sarong. "Hello, new neighbor," he grinned, his teeth stained yellow from tobacco. We chatted about the heat, rising gas prices, and the area. When I mentioned renting Unit 17, he nodded. "Cheap place, eh? But this neighborhood's quiet, too quiet sometimes. You might hear things you shouldn't." I brushed it off with a laugh, thinking he was just messing around. The first night, I slept like a log after the exhausting day. But on the second night, around 2:30 a.m., I jolted awake to a weird sound. It wasn't loud, just a faint whimper, like a baby crying oh-oh, but distorted, echoing through the thick wall. I lay still, listening. It came from the wall right next to my bed, the one shared with Unit 19 next door. Not constant, rising and falling like the kid was trying to hold it in but couldn't, mixed with weak, gasping breaths. Probably the neighbor's baby, I reassured myself. There were a few families with little ones around here. Maybe the kid was sick or hungry. I rolled over, pulled the blanket over my head, and tried to drift off. But the crying dragged on, persistent until about 4 a.m. when it finally stopped. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and gritty eyes from lack of sleep. I downed a strong black coffee and headed out to work a job fixing cameras at a logistics company downtown. All day, I didn't give the noise a second thought. The following days were routine. Work from dawn till dusk, home for a quick meal, usually takeout from the mammoth then bed. But the crying started repeating, like clockwork. Every night, from around 2:30 to 4 a.m., it would start up again. Not always crystal clear, sometimes just a low moan, like wind through wall cracks, but over time, I realized it sounded exactly like a newborn's wail. Weak, high-pitched, like the baby was in pain or starving. I checked the bedroom camera on my phone. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the dim room. Fan worries slowly, yellow light, casting long shadows on the worn wooden floor. No movement, no strange figures. I figured it had to be from next door. Unit 19 belonged to Nurasaya, a 26-year-old woman living alone. I'd seen her a couple times in the shared corridor, quiet type, always looking exhausted, like she hadn't slept in weeks. Pale skin under thin makeup, long hair messily tied back, working at a clothing store near a mall. One afternoon, as we both took out the trash, I casually asked, "Sis, do you have kids? I keep hearing crying from your side at night." She stared at me for a moment, her dark eyes flashing something like fear, then shook her head. "No, I live alone. You must be mistaken." Her voice trembled, breath quick, and she hurried back inside, like she was fleeing the topic. That's when the unease really set in. The house felt more stifling by the day, hot and muggy, sweat beading even with the fan blasting. At night, the yellow bulb's dim glow created elongated shadows on the walls, like bony fingers reaching out. The fan's creak sounded like scratching from within the bricks, and the cat's yowls outside now mimicked eerie childlike giggles more than hunger calls. I tried sleeping with earphones, playing soft music to drown it out, but no luck. The crying seeped through, invading my dreams, waking me with a racing heart. Insomnia hit hard. Strange nightmares crept in, recurring. I'd be fixing cameras in a dark DMP place, and through the lens, I'd spot a newborn curled in a wall corner, wailing non-stop. The baby looked sickly, skin wrinkled like it had been dead for days, eyes unnaturally wide and unblinking, mouth twisted toothless. When I'd approach for a closer look, it'd vanish, leaving only echoing cries mixed with howling wind. Mornings, I'd wake drained, heart pounding erratically, like something was squeezing it. Throat parched, despite guzzling water all night. I decided to investigate properly. As a tech guy, I had the gear. I added a sensitive mic to the bedroom camera, wired to my laptop for recording and analysis. That night, I lay awake, staring at the low ceiling. Around 2:45 a.m., the crying started clearer, closer, like right in my ear. Not from outside the wall, but deep inside, buried in the bricks. I noted it. Small, feeble wails mixed with pained gasps. Morning came. I reviewed the audio file. The crying was there, crystal clear, but the video, empty. No motion detected, no shadows. I tapped the wall, solid thud, no hollow spots like modern partitions. But pressing my ear against it, I heard it sharper, tiny sobs, like a starving infant, and a weird smell wafted through a hairline crack I hadn't noticed, musty with sour milk. Now, I was doubting myself. Work stress, COVID was spreading, jobs drying up, me hustling harder, or old memories. Back in 2018, I did a gig installing cameras at an unlicensed orphanage on Johor's outskirts. The place wasn't right. Footage showed kids locked in dark rooms, some gaunt and bruised. I overheard the owners talking about handling sick ones to avoid trouble. I knew it was wrong abuse, maybe worse, but I just did my job, took the pay, and left. Not your business, Arif, I'd thought. Report it. You lose gigs, maybe worse. Now, guilt gnawed at me, but this crying ... connected. I couldn't take it. One rainy afternoon, I knocked on Nurasaya's door. She answered after a pause, looking more haggard, dark circles like bruises. "Sis, sorry to bother, but I hear crying from your wall. It won't stop. Do you hear it?" "No, anything." She hesitated, glancing around like someone might overhear, then pulled me inside. Her place mirrored mine. Thick walls, musty air, sparse furniture, worn sofa and wooden tea table. She brewed 2 hot teas, sat across, whispering like the walls had ears. "I've heard it. For ages, before you moved in. Thought it was hallucinations from insomnia. I had depression, docs gave sleeping pills, but that crying ... it's real." I tried opening the wall once. Her eyes widened, horror flashing. "Opened the wall. Why? What did you see?" I pressed, heart racing. She shook her head frantically. Don't dig. Some things don't vanish. They just relocate. They feed on ... people's guilt. If you hear it, it's chosen you. No more details. She shooed me out, urging early sleep and no overthinking. But as I left, she murmured, "Don't mention children, ever." Things spiraled from there. The crying grew nearer, sharper. Late night's nightmares jolted me. Back at the orphanage, a withered child crawling from a wall crack, grey-green skin like a long-dead corpse, eyes bulging, unblinking, mouth distorted, wailing. It didn't attack outright, just stared, siphoning my life force. Heart erratic, paranoia surging. I obsessively checked cameras, paranoid about being watched, changed passwords, scanned for hacks. Nothing. Then cracks appeared. On the shared wall, a small fissure, 10 centimeters long, like internal clawing. Flashlight in pitch black, but the smell intensified. Sour milk, mixed with rotting flesh. I taped it shut. Next morning, wider, and the crying loudest from there. Panic set in. I sought Pax Sally one stormy evening at the Mamek, him puffing hand-rolled cigarettes under neon. Pack the wall, crying like a baby, but not. Insomnia, nightmares, non-stop. You know something. He eyed me pityingly. "Bajang, son," I scoffed, clinging to reason. "Ghosts. I don't buy it." He shook his head. "Not your average spirit. Bajang's the soul of abandoned children, buried in sin, lives in walls, old house crevices, doesn't target innocence, cries sensing guilt tied to kids, like forsaking, silencing deaths, ignoring crimes. Hearing it cry means it's hungry, feeds on life energy through sleep, nightmares, heart, chaos, delusions. When it stops crying, it's fed sated from its victim." Chills hit sweat, despite rain. He elaborated. "Back in the 80s, a family here dumped a deformed newborn, buried alive in the wall to hide shame. Bajang didn't die. Thrives on human guilt, shifting homes via unwitting feeders. Those who ignored child deaths, it finds them. Like you, Arif, got kid-related guilt." The orphanage flash footage scene. Silence kept. My passive complicity. That night, the crying ceased. 2:32 4 a.m. Dead silence. I waited, heart thundering. No wails, but presence in the room. Shadows thicker. Phone flashlight swept. Nothing but the crack. Wider, a tiny withered hand protruding like dead branches, with bulging eyes staring. Toothless, twisted mouth. Silent. Next morning, I woke late, body weary but oddly calm. Everything seemed normal. Outside, Nure Saya eyed me oddly, averting gaze. That evening, word from Pax Sour. Neighbors hearing cries from my room now. Am I still me? Or has Bajang relocated, living in me, awaiting the next? I don't know. But tonight, I hear the crying again, this time from inside my head.